welcome to these few minutes of meditation that we have together. It is truly an honor to spend these few minutes both in quiet reflection with myself as well as collectively with those that are here. And so let's just settle in, realizing what an honor it is for all of us just to stop the activity, to allow the mind to maybe slow down just a bit, and to come into this familiar spot and just be for just a few minutes. So just begin to notice your body as your eyes begin to gently close. Just get a sense of how do you feel today? What have you been carrying? How is it physically affecting you? How is it mentally affecting you and emotionally? Who all of you interacted with today? How is that affecting you? And what are some things maybe that are kind of lingering? Some things that you're walking through and dealing with in your own personal life. Just get a sense of the whole being of you, all the parts. And then let's see if we can sit with the whole being of us for these few minutes. With the tiredness, with the distractions, with the heartache, with all the stuff. Let's just see if we can sit with all of it and find some stillness. So as you really begin to notice all these things about yourself, let's turn our attention to the breath, this beautiful ally, this constant force that allows us to regulate, to settle, to balance. So together, let's just take a slow breath in and exhale, let it go. And again, together, a slow breath in and release it out. And then one more together, collectively breathing in and collectively sighing it out. And then let that breath usher you into a pace that feels right for you. And in these few minutes that we have together today, we're on this journey of understanding mindfulness and the role that it plays, not just in our practice, but in every facet of our being. And so there's a story that was shared with me recently, and it's just kind of stuck with me all day as this beautiful example of understanding the things that are holding us back. And the longer that the story just sat with me, I thought, this is one more tool in our mindfulness toolbox. And so as you just continue to sit, settling, relaxing, breathing, see if you can visualize this short story as I tell it. There's these two friends and they're planning to hike to the top of the mountain. So they have their gear and they're headed through the wilderness, headed to this mountain. And they notice when they are almost to the base of the mountain that there's a river separating them from the mountain, a river they're going to have to cross. But as fate would have it, there are two canoes on the bank of the river. So each person gets into the canoe, safely paddles his way across this river, and gets out on the other side. And as they look ahead of them, they see it's just mountain from here on. All they have to do now is climb. And so one of them sets the canoe to the side, just so grateful for the safe passage, for the resource that it was to get them safely across the water. But the other one picks up the canoe and begins to carry it with him to the base of the mountain. There is no water to cross. There's nothing ahead that would need the function of this canoe, but he carries it anyway. So the pace that he had started with was kept in line with his friend's pace, but now all of a sudden his pace is slower. He's falling behind and he's tired, and the canoe is heavy, but he just can't let it go because he just might need it again. Even though there's no water, he can't set it down. And as the story was told to me, and as I'm telling it to you, just picture this poor soul. It's what I did when I heard it. He and his friend were having this wonderful hike toward the mountain, and all of a sudden now he's tired. His stamina is getting less and less. His back probably hurts a little bit, and he just can't let it go. Oftentimes in meditation, we talk about the things that are harmful to us, needing to set healthy boundaries, needing to keep toxic things out. And that is part of this work. That is part of this practice. But there are also things in our life that did serve our purpose, that did become a resource for us at some point in time, just like that canoe. But as we continue along this path of this spiritual growth, this transformation within our heart and our soul, there are things that we just don't need anymore, even though they had a purpose back then. So think about this poor soul carrying this canoe, and he knows what he wants to do. He wants to get to the top of the mountain. He wants to have the experience. He wants to walk this path with his friend. But he's burdened down because he just can't let it go. Chances are we all have this metaphorical canoe in our life. Maybe we have multiple canoes. These are not the things that are bad for us. These are not the toxic relationships. These are not the unhealthy habits. That's something else. These are the things that they actually served a purpose at some point. But the more that we develop, the more in tune with ourselves that we get, the more clarity that we bring to our minds in this practice, there are things we're going to need to leave behind. They could be situations, they could be thought patterns, they could be habits in our heads, they could be people, they could be habits or hobbies. And at times in our life, they had a purpose. But to be the person that we are meant to be, not becoming something else, but the person we're meant to be, why would we want to carry a canoe to the top of a mountain? And I know there's a little bit of silliness kind of along that story, but as I sat with it, my heart got heavy because I know what my canoes are. And none of them are bad things. None of them are bad relationships. None of them are really bad habits. But they're just things that don't serve the path that I'm on anymore. I think about my interactions with social media. It's become this kind of necessary evil, this necessary thing in my life, just to stay connected and to share. It is part of what I do on a pretty regular basis. But if I'm not careful, it becomes this canoe, and it's not serving the purpose that I want to live. I find myself getting lost in the scrolling. I find myself reading the things that are maybe not positive, and something that really does have a part of this life that I've led up to now. It's not serving my purpose anymore. And so I've got to figure out what is going to be my relationship with social media going forward. And I'm not saying that we all need to sit and evaluate the time that we spend and all the sites and all the places. I know for myself that that's something I'm struggling with. How do I stay connected? How do I share the stories and the messages and the good work without letting it get in the way of this purpose that I have? For you, it could be something connected to the past. Again, it had its place, but does it belong in your life now? For you, it could be something at work. It's not harmful, it's not bad, it just, does it fill you up and keep your energy light and peaceful when you're around it? If not, it's the canoe. It's really easy, and maybe it's not easy, but it's easier when we sit in meditation and we reflect on the things that we know are harmful, the things that we know are stumbling blocks. They're so clear. And maybe they're not easy to stop or get rid of, but it's so clear that they need to go. These canoes, it's not as clear. The answer won't come in one meditation session or one repetition of a mantra. It may require us to sit with it for just a little bit. To really sit and think. There's a mountain that I'm walking up. Are the things that I'm carrying with me allowing me to stay light and at ease in my spirit, in my thoughts, and in my physical being? And if the answer about any of these things is no, then those are the things that we need to really think about and reflect on. We don't just make a list and start cutting things out of our life. We sit with it. And then all of a sudden, we feel the release. Almost like a permission within us that you can put the canoe down. There's no water to cross up there. You're not going to need that anymore. So let's just each sit in our own space, still holding space together collectively, and just picture these two friends. The same tool, the canoe, served the same purpose. It got them across the river. And one, without even thinking, set that canoe down, thankful for what it provided, and moved on. But the other struggling to put it down, struggling to move on. And so just let that story kind of frame this quiet time that we'll spend across these few minutes. And just think, as you sit, what are my canoes? Doesn't mean that by the time we finish and our eyes open and we end that we'll have answers, but just think of the question, what are my canoes? And as you continue to breathe in quiet reflection, I shared with you the canoe that I'm sitting with, struggling with a little bit. But I want to close our time sharing with you a canoe that I've been able to set down. It took a long time, but now I realize that's what I was doing. 11 years ago, I lost my mom. Too early, too quick. And as Mother's Day would roll around, it was a day almost of suffering. For years, I couldn't even enjoy the fact that I'm a mom and that I'm a grandmother and that I get to celebrate other moms in my life. I was burdened with the sorrow. And it's not to say now that I don't miss her every day and think of the lessons and the things that she's taught me. But the canoe that I was carrying, the sorrow, it served its purpose. I grieved for a long time. But a couple of years ago, I was able to set it down and just be grateful for the life that she lived. When Mother's Day rolls around, it does hurt a little bit still, but it's not that deep, hurtful sorrow. I've been able to set that one down. The sorrow served its purpose. It walked with me for the years that I grieved her, especially on Mother's Day. And now Mother's Day, as it rolls around in just the next few days, is my time to celebrate the example she provided to me of how to be a mom and a grandmother and a woman and a force. And so these canoes can be anything. My sorrow, my grief for her and that loss, it wasn't a harmful thing. But if 11 years down, I'm still crippled by it, there's a chance that harm could come. So just continue to be open. Think about and picture these two friends walking toward the base of the mountain. One with lightness of spirit, and one carrying not only a heavy burden, but an unnecessary one. What is your canoe? Don't worry about trying to answer it. Just keep asking the question, and the answer, the clarity will come. And then give yourself the grace and the patience and the time to sit with it. The answer doesn't come and then you just set it down. The answer comes and you give yourself permission to sit and reflect. And you'll know when it's time to let it go. And we'll walk up that mountain with lightness of spirit, lightness of being, taking this practice with us into every facet of our lives. Namaste.